The phone's shrill ring sliced through the silence of Marcus Bennett's apartment, echoing against bare walls painted the color of late-night loneliness. It was 3:07 a.m., and nothing good ever happened at 3 a.m. Marcus jolted upright, sweat beading on his forehead, his heart thudding in his chest as he scrambled for the phone on the nightstand. His hands shook. He didn't want to answer, didn't want to hear what he already knew was coming. Marcus, it's about your granddad. I'm so sorry. He pressed the phone to his ear, his throat tightening as he listened to Aunt Lila's voice, thick with tears floating across the miles from Oklahoma. Words tumbled out. Massive stroke. He didn't suffer. Pass peacefully. But all Marcus could hear was the pounding in his ears, the hollow ache blossoming in his chest. He hung up, curling in on himself, squeezing his eyes shut, praying to wake up from a nightmare. But the silence just pressed in harder, heavier. By sunrise, Marcus was on the road, driving south from Kansas City, each mile unraveling memories of summers spent on his grandfather's ranch. Dusty boots, the smell of hay, strong hands teaching him how to ride. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. The old man was gone. Just like that. And he was alone. The funeral was a blur, family he barely recognized, their faces blurred by tears and grief. The old preacher's voice droning through verses about ashes to ashes. The Oklahoma sun beating down, hot and relentless. Marcus stood at the edge of the grave, his gaze fixed on the casket as it was lowered, his heart sinking with it. Then he saw it. Something odd. Wedged into the folds of the white linen inside the coffin, a flash of silver. He waited until the mourners drifted away, then stepped closer, knees weak, hands numb. With trembling fingers, he reached inside and found an old iron key, heavy and cold, tied to a worn strip of leather. There was a note, too, tucked just beneath the key. For Marcus. Only you. Trust the bloodline. He stared, breath catching, confusion mixing with grief. Trust the bloodline? His grandfather was always full of secrets and old cowboy tales. Bass Reeves, the legendary Black Marshal, the sacred horses of the valley, legacies whispered in the dark. Marcus had always thought they were just stories. Until now. That night, he tossed and turned in his childhood bedroom, the key resting on his chest, the note tucked in his palm. Sleep never came. When the house finally stilled, he followed his instincts and the faded map of the ranch in his mind, slipping out under the cover of darkness toward the family barn. He found it, the old storm cellar, half buried behind the barn, rusted shut for decades. The key fit perfectly. Marcus hesitated, then twisted. The lock clicked. The door creaked open, and he was swallowed by the cool, damp air of the earth. Stale, musty darkness pressed against him as he stepped down rickety wooden stairs, phone flashlight trembling in his grasp. He reached the bottom, and his breath caught. The cellar was filled with relics, faded photographs, a rusted sheriff's badge, worn leather saddles, a blood-stained journal tied with red twine. But it was the heavy stone door at the far end that drew him forward. He pressed his palm to its rough surface. Bass Reeves, the legend, was carved into the stone alongside the shape of a galloping horse with wild, burning eyes. The key fit again. As the door opened, the air grew thick with the weight of history, the scent of old earth and secrets. Marcus stepped inside and stared in awe at a chamber lined with artifacts, silver spurs, ancient rifles, a faded family tree stretching back 150 years. In the center, a saddle, black leather too pristine for its age, marked with the name Thunder. Next to it, a locket. Inside, a tiny lock of black mane. He reached for the journal and opened it with trembling hands. Pages and pages of his grandfather's neat, looping script filled the yellowed paper, recounting stories of the Thunder bloodline, horses so intelligent they were called spirit guides, partners of men chosen for a sacred purpose. Marcus sat there, reading by weak light, feeling the walls between past and present thinning around him. He read the line that stopped his heart. Thunder 3 will know my kin. He will protect them as I did. The bond will outlast death. Far away, as Marcus's destiny stirred, another soul woke in the moonlit valley. Thunder 3, black as midnight, tall and noble, with a blaze of white streaking down his face, stood at the edge of the sacred glen, hooves planted firm in dew-damp grass, ears flicking at the whisper of the wind. He felt it, a ripple in the spiritual fabric that had held him for years, ever since the old man promised a successor would come. 3 years had passed since the valley's guardian had gone silent, leaving Thunder the 3 and his herd to guard the family's secrets. The wind carried a scent, sweat, sorrow, the iron tang of loss. Thunder's breath clouded in the cool air as he closed his eyes, reaching with senses that stretched beyond flesh and bone into the realm where memories never faded. He saw visions of the old man, gentle, wise, whispering promises beneath the ancient oak. Wait, trust. My bloodline will return. He had waited and waited, as seasons changed, as coyotes and hawks came and went, as the valley itself seemed to hold its breath. Now, the time had come. Thunder 3 raised his head, his body shivering with anticipation and fear, sensing the pull of fate in the earth beneath his hooves. Marcus read the journal's final words aloud, his voice echoing in the hidden tomb. Thunder 3 will recognize my descendant. A chill swept through him as he closed the journal, clutching it tight. Somewhere out there, a legacy was waiting. But was he strong enough to claim it? As the first light of dawn spilled across the valley, Thunder the 3's vision sharpened. A young man walking through morning mist, eyes haunted but determined, carrying the weight of old blood and new purpose. Thunder felt the spirit within him surge. This was the one, the heir. At that moment, across the fields and years, the souls of man and horse brushed, not yet touching, but aware, bound by a secret only they could unlock. Their meeting was written in the bones of the earth. But neither knew yet if destiny was a gift or a curse. Two souls, drawn by fate, each haunted by loss and longing. But will they recognize the mission they share? Or will legacy slip through their grasp like dust on the wind? Sunrise washed over the ranch in a blaze of red and gold, spilling through the window of Marcus's childhood room, nudging him awake after a night spent wrestling with shadows. His grandfather's journal sat open on the quilt beside him, the key and locket pressed to his chest as if he could absorb their secrets in his sleep. But the only thing Marcus had gained was a bone-deep exhaustion, a sense of standing on the edge of something too big to understand. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and let the words replay in his mind. Thunder 3 will recognize my descendant. He'd spent hours tracing the family tree drawn in the journal, following names he'd only ever heard and half-remembered stories. Men and women who had fought, lost, and survived, always with a black horse at their side. The light caught on a page he'd missed before, a faded map, sketched in hurried pencil, marked with a star in the northwest corner of the property. Next to it, a single word, seek. Marcus stared, his breath catching. If there were answers, that's where he'd find them. He slipped out of bed, careful not to wake the house, and dressed in jeans and a faded plaid shirt. The morning air was crisp, scented with grass, and the faint smoke of far-off brush fires. Marcus headed toward the back of the property, boots crunching through dew-drenched weeds, each step stirring memories of childhood summers chasing fireflies and riding old Thunder II under a sky thick with stars. But today, every sound felt sharper, every bird call, every rustle in the brush, every distant whinny sent a shiver through him. He clutched the key and the locket tight in one fist, the journal tucked under his arm as if it could shield him from the unknown. "What am I even looking for?" a voice inside him whispered. But he pressed on, drawn by something he couldn't explain. At the far edge of the ranch, where the land tumbled into a narrow valley shaded by ancient oaks, Marcus found the star from the map scratched into a smooth stone. He crouched, running his fingers over the groove. And for a moment, the world felt suspended, heavy with possibility. A low, electric thrill rippled through the air. He looked up, and froze. The valley wasn't empty. A herd of horses grazed along the creek, their coats shining in the early sun, muscles shifting beneath skin like living thunderclouds. They moved together, silent and watchful, their eyes tracking him as one. At their center stood a stallion unlike any Marcus had ever seen, immense, black as midnight, with a white blaze slashing down his face, his presence so commanding the earth itself seemed to hush. So Thunder the Three. Marcus's breath hitched. He felt the weight of generations pressing down on him, the journal's stories humming in his blood. The stallion lifted his head, meeting Marcus's gaze with an intensity that sent chills racing up his spine. Thunder Three's thoughts moved like wind through long grass. For 3 years he'd guarded this sacred place, wary of outsiders, loyal only to the promise made to the old man, to wait for the true heir. Now, as he watched Marcus approach, his instincts warred with hope and memory. Humans brought danger, but also redemption. Was this the one? A hush settled. The other horses edged closer, forming a living barrier between Marcus and their leader. Ears pinned, nostrils flaring, they signaled warning. Marcus took a cautious step forward, then stopped, the pulse in his throat hammering. He remembered the stories. Never approach a thunder horse unless invited. Never break the circle. He waited, willing his body to stay still, even as fear and excitement tangled in his chest. Thunder the Three watched, nostrils quivering, muscles coiled. The scent of this human was different, tinged with loss and longing, but threaded with something familiar. The bloodline was true, but trust had to be earned. In his mind, Thunder Three remembered betrayal. Bass Reeves ambushed by false friends, Thunderwhy lost in the crossfire to save an innocent, scars etched deep into the herd's memory. Trust could not be given freely, not even to a blood descendant. It had to be tested, proved. The stallion stepped forward, leaving the herd behind. His hooves struck the earth in deliberate rhythm, each step a silent challenge. Marcus held his ground, sweat prickling on his forehead. 10 feet away, Thunder Three stopped, eyes dark and unreadable. A silent test had begun. Marcus felt it, a tension like the world holding its breath. The first trial, patience. He willed his body to stay still, resisting the urge to reach out, to speak, to move even an inch. Time stretched, elastic and endless. The sun climbed higher, sweat trickling down Marcus's back. Minutes passed, 5, 7, 10, until his legs trembled and his vision blurred. Still, he did not move. Thunder Three flicked an ear, impressed. The human had passed the first trial. Without warning, the stallion surged forward, teeth bared in a sudden charge, hooves pounding, a wall of muscle and power closing the distance in heartbeats. The herd scattered, snorting as Marcus's instincts screamed at him to run. He clenched his fists and stood his ground. At the last possible instant, Thunder Three skidded to a halt, nostrils flaring so close Marcus could smell grass and thunder. Fear clawed at Marcus's gut, but he kept his eyes steady, refusing to flinch. Thunder Three stared deep into his soul. The second trial? Courage. The world seemed to pause, caught between the pulse of Marcus's heart and the stallion's breathing. The air shimmered. Then, with a flick of his mane, Thunder Three stepped back. Marcus exhaled, shaking, but did not reach out, did not try to take control. Instead, he bowed his head slightly, remembering the lesson his grandfather had drilled into him. Respect is earned, never demanded. He whispered, his voice barely more than a tremor, "I'm not here to tame you. If you'll have me, I'll follow your lead." Thunder Three's ears flicked forward. The third trial, respect. No rope, no bridle, no command. Just an invitation. The silence broke as a breeze swept through the valley. Thunder Three nodded once, a gesture almost regal, and in that instant something shifted between them, a current of understanding that hummed in the air, deeper than words. The herd parted, stepping aside to let Marcus through. He walked forward, breathless, his heart pounding with awe and disbelief. He stopped beside Thunder the Three, not touching, just standing in shared space. Two souls linked by fate, and old promises. In the back of his mind, Marcus heard his grandfather's voice. Thunder the Three will recognize you, but will you recognize yourself? A vision flickered behind Marcus's eyes. Flashes of Bass Reeves riding through moonlit fields, thunder horses beside him, gunfire and dust, courage and sacrifice. The stories weren't just tales, they were prophecy. Thunder Three's spirit surged, sensing the ancient bond stirring. He saw in a rush the faces of all those who had come before, and in Marcus he felt the old man's promise kept. Their meeting, destined and dangerous, had finally come to pass. But as Marcus stood in that sacred valley, feeling the weight of the past and the possibility of the future, he knew that destiny was not a gift. It was a test, and it had only just begun. Thunder Three had made his decision about Marcus, and that decision would change both their lives forever. Thunder Three lowered his head, nostrils brushing the crisp Oklahoma air, eyes fixed on Marcus with a deep, measuring intensity. The tests were done. The air between man and horse charged with an unspoken understanding. Somewhere in the hush of the valley, the spirit of Bass Reeves stirred, and Marcus felt a strange certainty bloom in his chest. He had been chosen, but not by birthright alone. He'd been tested, found worthy, and now the legacy would either live or die with what came next. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Thunder Three took a deliberate step forward, muscles rippling beneath his obsidian coat. Marcus stood still, every instinct screaming at him to reach out, but he waited, letting the stallion set the terms. Thunder's breath, warm and damp, tickled Marcus's palm as the horse pressed his muzzle into the open space between them. Marcus exhaled, slow, steady, and let his hand drift, barely grazing Thunder's cheek. The contact sent a jolt through both of them, something ancient and electric, deeper than memory, deeper than fear. A connection flashed in Marcus's mind, sharp as lightning. Images. The old man, his grandfather, riding under stormy skies, laughter mixing with gunshots, a blood-red sunset, the sound of hooves pounding earth, not fleeing but charging into the heart of danger. The bond wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, threaded through time, stitched into the fabric of both their lineages. Thunder the Three's eyes glazed, the world narrowing to this one human, this one chance. In that moment, he chose. He turned, beckoning with a tilt of his head, urging Marcus to follow him deeper into the sacred valley. Marcus's legs felt weak as he trailed behind, the herd parting before them, some curious, others wary, all aware that something momentous was taking shape. Thunder Three led Marcus to the mouth of a shadowed cave, nearly hidden by drooping branches and mossy boulders. He stamped once, then twice, on the earth, sending a shudder through the ground. The air inside the cave smelled of age and smoke, leather and dust. Relics lined the walls, old weapons, rifles, pistols, blades, some rusted, others gleaming with careful preservation. Marcus's eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. This was no ordinary hiding place. It was an armory, a sanctuary, the legacy of Bass Reeves. Thunder Three turned, his body blocking the entrance for a moment. Marcus hesitated, then entered. The cave was cool, the silence thick. He reached out to touch a rifle, its wood smooth and oiled, initials BR carved into the stock. Another weapon, a pair of silver spurs. The item seemed to hum with a faint energy. This was history, but it was also a warning. Every tool here had been used, not just kept. Thunder Three watched as Marcus knelt by a faded saddle, black leather, impossibly old yet uncracked, marked with the name Thunder. A wave of emotion crashed through Marcus. Pride, fear, awe. He understood now. These weren't just objects, they were sacred burdens, handed down for a reason. The stallion nudged Marcus, leading him back out into the sunlight. Next, they moved toward a spring bubbling up from the earth, water so clear it reflected the sky in perfect blue. Thunder Three stopped, bowed his head, and Marcus knelt beside him, dipping his fingers in the cool water. He felt a sense of peace, a stillness, as if the spring itself remembered every secret, every vow. It was here, the journal whispered, that Bass Reeves had prayed for strength on the eve of his most dangerous missions. A third stop awaited them, a gentle slope rising above the valley, 2 small mounds marked with river stones, each bearing a simple inscription, Thunder 1, Thunder 2. Marcus knelt, tracing the names, feeling the weight of every sacrifice, every story lost to time. Thunder 3 stood silently beside him, his breath steady, his presence a living testament to those who had gone before. Marcus sat back on his heels, overwhelmed. "You remember, don't you?" he whispered, and Thunder 3 dipped his head, as if answering. The bond between them was growing, wordless but undeniable. Marcus fumbled with his grandfather's journal, turning to a page filled with careful diagrams of horse postures and eye signals. He tried to match Thunder 3's movements, the flick of an ear, the widening of an eye, the slow shift of weight. The more he tried, the more he realized Thunder the 3 understood far more than any ordinary horse. Their communication grew, not just gestures, but an energy, a feeling, like 2 radios tuning to the same frequency. He looked into Thunder 3's eyes, and for a heartbeat, saw through them. A burst of images. A dusty street, the sound of gunfire, a man in a wide-brimmed hat riding into chaos with thunder blood at his side. Marcus blinked, dizzy, and knew this was something deeper than trust. It was partnership. The valley seemed to hold its breath as Thunder 3 stepped forward, lowering his head in invitation. Marcus froze, every muscle tense. He knew what this meant. The ritual his grandfather had described in half-whispered tales. The partnership ride. He approached slowly, mindful, bowing his head in respect. Thunder 3 held steady as Marcus placed a trembling hand on his mane, then swung himself onto the stallion's broad back. The world shifted beneath him, the valley, the spring, the armory, the graves. All of it faded for a moment as man and horse became one. Thunder 3 took a slow step forward, then another, and suddenly Marcus felt the world expand around him. In a rush, his mind filled with visions, the echo of Bass Reeves's voice, the thunder of hooves, a shared vision of a future not yet written. He felt blood pulsing through Thunder's veins as if it were his own, saw the world in sharper colors, brighter sounds. The partnership was sealed. Without warning, Thunder 3 reared, letting out a cry that rolled across the valley, a sound both challenge and promise. Marcus clung tight, but there was no fear, only the sense that he had finally found where he belonged. Thunder 3 dipped his head, and Marcus took his thumb, pricked it on a thorn, and pressed it to the stallion's forehead. Blood smeared the white blaze, marking both horse and man with the seal of oath. The wind picked up, and for an instant the 2 spirits saw Bass Reeves himself standing on the edge of the clearing, smiling approval. But fate did not wait. From the far side of the valley, a shout rang out. Sheriff Williams, broad-shouldered and red-faced, strode into view, his pistol drawn, fury etched into every line of his body. "Step away from that animal, boy. I'm giving you 48 hours to disappear, or I'll put both of you in the ground." Thunder 3 shifted instantly, placing himself between Marcus and the sheriff, ears pinned, body tense, every muscle ready to protect. Marcus swallowed, heart racing. He knew, in that moment, that this alliance would be tested by more than rituals or blood. It would be tested by bullets, by power, by men who believed legacy could be stamped out by force. But he did not flinch. He slid off Thunder 3, stood tall, and met Williams's glare. "You'll have to go through both of us." Thunder 3 pawed the earth, a line drawn, a promise made. As Williams backed away, the threat hung in the air, heavy as a storm. But deep inside, Marcus felt certainty for the first time in his life. He and Thunder the 3 had chosen each other. Now, together, they would face whatever darkness was coming. Sheriff Williams didn't know it yet, but Thunder the 3 had his own plan to keep Marcus safe. And this plan would shake the valley to its core. Thunder 3 stood sentinel in the blue-gray light of dawn, his massive body casting a shadow over the dew-soaked grass. Every sense was sharpened, each nerve thrumming with purpose. The bond had been forged, but danger now pressed against the edges of the valley like a gathering storm. Sheriff Williams's threat was more than bluster. In his years watching men, Thunder the Third had learned to read intent as well as any stallion could, and Williams was a predator, proud, cunning, and dangerous. Thunder 3 had seen his kind before, men who tried to control the valley through intimidation and firepower, thinking their guns could silence the truth that ran deeper than any law. But the valley was not unprotected. Its secrets were ancient, and its alliances were older than any sheriff's badge. Thunder 3 breathed in the cold air, remembering the lessons of Bass Reeves. You don't fight alone, you gather your herd. The herd, too, sensed the unease. Mares clustered close, foals pressed into their mother's sides, the air thick with low nickers and restless hoofbeats. Thunder the Three strode through their ranks, each horse dipping its head in respect. He paused at the edge of the thicket, raised his head, and called out, a low, rumbling whinny that carried for miles. The sound was not just a warning, but a summons, the first move in the plan already taking shape in Thunder's mind. Out in the scrublands, other horses paused at the call. Wild stallions, some bearing old scars, perked their ears, recognizing the voice of a leader. Within the hour, 2 rangy mustangs joined the main herd, their eyes sharp with curiosity and loyalty to the bloodline. In the branches above, a red-tailed hawk circled and screeched, its keen eyes scanning the ground. Coyotes appeared at the fringe of the meadow, silent shadows, their amber eyes gleaming in the grass. Even the ranch dogs, long accustomed to keeping the valley's borders, sensed the shift and came trotting, tails high and alert, ready for orders. Thunder the Three communicated with them in a language older than words. Through nicker and stomp, gesture and stare, he sent his message. There is a threat. The family must be protected. From his vantage point in the barn, Marcus watched, bewildered, as this network came alive. Horses seemed to appear out of nowhere. Birds swooped low, then vanished, as if dispatched on errands. Coyotes slunk along the fence line, but instead of hunting, they sat on their haunches and waited, patient and alert. Even the dogs, normally rowdy, patrolled in practiced lines, sniffing the air for any sign of strangers. Thunder 3 returned to Marcus's side, nudging him gently. Marcus knelt, meeting the stallion's gaze. Are you planning something? He whispered, almost embarrassed by the question. The horse's eyes flashed with intelligence. Thunder 3 turned, motioning for Marcus to follow, then led him to a clearing near the old barn. In the soft earth, Thunder 3 began to trace shapes with his massive hoof, circles and lines, a rough map of the valley and its hidden paths. Marcus stared, then remembered the journal's diagrams. His grandfather had written that thunder horses could draw a map better than most men. Marcus knelt beside him, pressing his palm into the dirt to fill in details, the location of Williams's compound, the routes his men would take, the positions of every creek and thicket. Together, man and horse built a plan. One with the wisdom of old legends and the practicality of modern fear. Marcus added what he knew. Williams had 12 men, all armed, some ex-military, all loyal to their boss and his money. He pointed to the weakest points in Williams's defenses. Thunder the Three marked the spots where the wild horses would create diversions, where the coyotes could slip through the brush, where the hawks could spot movement and warn them from above. As the day wore on, Marcus began to realize what was happening. Thunder the Three was not just a symbol or a relic. He was a general, strategizing with his allies, blending animal instinct with a nearly human cunning. Marcus felt a strange mix of awe and responsibility. The valley's safety was in his hands now, and in Thunder's hooves. Late that afternoon, Marcus tried to warn Sarah, a neighbor and childhood friend, someone who'd always been sympathetic to the Bennetts. But he found her house empty, a sense of foreboding in the air. He hurried back, nerves jangling, and found Thunder 3 waiting. As night fell, the valley changed. Mist crept low along the ground, and the forest thickened with shadow. Thunder 3 moved quietly among his network, checking on every post, every pair of eyes, every ally. The mustangs slipped through the trees to reconnoiter, while the hawks settled in the highest pine, watching for unnatural movement. The dogs lay with their noses to the wind, every muscle ready. Even the coyotes, skittish as ghosts, took up positions along the trail that led to the heart of the valley. Inside the barn, Marcus reviewed the plan again and again. He loaded an old shotgun, checked the locks, and tried not to think about the way Williams had looked at him, as if he were already dead. But he drew strength from Thunder the Three, who checked on him once more before returning to the night. The stallion paused at the edge of the darkness, looking back at Marcus as if to say, "Trust me, I have done this before." Thunder 3 sent out a final, quiet signal. In the darkness, the wild horses began to move, spreading out to confuse and distract. The coyotes slunk into position, ready to harass Williams's sentries. The hawk gave one soft screech, then glided out over the ranch, eyes shining in the moonlight. Every ally, animal, and human was in place. But then, just before dawn, disaster struck. One of Williams's scouts, emboldened by the promise of reward, stumbled upon a Mustang and fired his rifle in panic. The shot rang out across the valley, sending the horses into a frenzy and bringing Williams's men down the main trail much earlier than Marcus or Thunder the Third had planned. Thunder the Three heard the first pounding footsteps and made a split-second decision. He raced back to the barn, rounding up Marcus and the herd, signaling the coyotes to create a distraction on the eastern side, while the wild horses stampeded to the west, drawing several of Williams's men away from the main house. The dogs barked in practiced confusion, leading others in circles until they were completely disoriented. In the chaos, Thunder 3 pressed his head against Marcus's shoulder, eyes burning with intensity. Marcus understood. It was time to act, now or never. As the first rays of sunlight touched the valley, Williams's men broke through the trees, guns drawn, shouting orders. The battle was upon them, sooner and fiercer than they'd expected. But Thunder 3 was ready. He'd trusted his instincts, trusted his network, and most of all, trusted the bond with Marcus. Together, they would face the coming storm. Side by side, mind to mind, heart to heart. As Williams's men descend, Thunder the Third must make a life-or-death decision that could change everything for both man and horse. The air in the valley was thick with gunsmoke and shouts. As the chaos burst open around them, Marcus's pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out everything but the roar of danger. Williams's men surged from the shadows, guns drawn, their boots trampling the tall grass and wildflowers. It was happening, not as planned, but as war always did. Fast, messy, merciless. Inside the barn, Marcus was frozen for a heartbeat, watching Thunder the Three's silhouette framed by the rising sun. The stallion was more than muscle and spirit now. He was strategy, history, hope. Thunder 3 pressed his head into Marcus's chest, a silent command pulsing between them. Go! But Marcus didn't run. Not when he heard another scream, a woman's scream, sharp and panicked, echoing across the pasture. Sarah. Marcus's gut twisted. He bolted to the window and saw Williams's men dragging Sarah through the orchard, her arms pinned, her face wild with fear and fury. Williams himself, sweat streaking his brow, pointed his revolver at her temple, shouting for all to hear. Come out, Bennett, you and your damn horse, or she's dead. Every word landed like a bullet. Marcus's thoughts spun. He gripped the shotgun tighter, but what could he do? He could try to fight, but he was outnumbered. Thunder 3 pawed the ground, muscles bunched and trembling. The plan was in ruins. The enemy had found a new lever. It was a classic moral trap. Save Sarah and risk the legacy, the artifacts, the history, or protect the secret and lose an innocent. Marcus's mind raced, but it was Thunder 3 who broke the stalemate. The stallion's mind churned. He remembered the stories, the sacrifices. Long ago, Bass Reeves had faced the same impossible decision, risking his thunder-blooded partner to save those who couldn't save themselves. That day, the first thunder had been lost, but the innocent had survived. That choice, hard and raw, had echoed down the bloodline, a lesson written in pain. Thunder 3 turned to Marcus, the trust between them humming with energy and heartbreak. He nickered low, nudging Marcus's shoulder. This wasn't a choice about artifacts or pride. This was about duty, the kind that ran deeper than blood or legend. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. You can't go alone. They'll shoot you, Thunder. But Thunder 3 was already gone, vanishing into the shadowed pasture, moving with the silent certainty of the wild. While the men focused on the barn and the commotion created by the decoy herd, Thunder the 3 slipped low through the grass, eyes fixed on the orchard where Sarah struggled. The world shrank to a tunnel. Her fear, Williams's threats, the glint of a pistol. The stallion's body was built for this, for stealth, for speed, for risk. Williams dragged Sarah to a sycamore tree, shouting at his men to find the damn horse. But even he, for all his bravado, flinched when Thunder the 3 burst from the brush like a black bolt of lightning, hooves pounding, eyes blazing. Shoot the horse, Williams bellowed, jerking Sarah to shield himself. Bullets cracked the air, but Thunder 3 swerved, moving with uncanny grace. He charged at the nearest gunman, teeth bared, and the man stumbled back, dropping his rifle in terror. Thunder 3 reared, hooves lashing the air, and with a wild cry, Sarah twisted out of Williams's grip and dove to the ground. Thunder 3 swept around, lowering himself so Sarah could scramble onto his back, barely clutching his mane before the stallion was off again, galloping toward the thickest part of the woods. Behind them, Williams's men cursed and fired blindly, their shots echoing through the valley. Sarah clung to Thunder the 3, her heartbeat racing to match his. For a split second as they cut through the trees, she felt his mind pressing into hers. Not words, but a swirl of images. Intentions. The pulsing drumbeat of escape. Somewhere in her blood, an old instinct awoke. Her mother's people, the native blood her family barely spoke of. The language of horses and wild places. It was as if she could hear Thunder the 3's spirit calling, guiding, urging her to hang on. Thunder 3 slowed only when they reached a shallow creek, hidden from the road and the ranch. He stopped, sides heaving, as Sarah slid down, her legs trembling. How? How did you know? She gasped, stroking the stallion's sweat-damp neck. Thunder 3 pressed his forehead to hers. In that instant, Sarah understood. This wasn't just an animal, but a guardian, a protector, a soul echoing through generations. They weren't alone for long. 2 coyotes, sent by Thunder 3's earlier call, appeared at the edge of the clearing, ears pricked, eyes bright. They watched as Sarah caught her breath, then nodded in the direction of the barn. Message delivered. Back at the barn, Marcus watched the chaos unfold with dread clawing his insides. He thought Thunder 3 had abandoned him. The battle was everywhere. Williams's men tearing through the ranch, horses screaming, dogs barking, gunshots snapping in the morning calm. Marcus was pinned down, but he never stopped watching for the glint of black hide or the blaze of white. When the coyotes appeared at the barn door, Marcus's heart nearly stopped. They circled, then trotted toward the woods, pausing to look back as if urging him to follow. He grabbed his shotgun, hope flaring, and sprinted after them, dodging fallen branches and weaving through smoke and brush. He found Sarah and Thunder the 3 by the creek, bruised but alive. Relief crashed over him. You made it. Sarah, I'm so sorry. But Sarah cut him off, her eyes wild and shining. He saved me, Marcus. I think he speaks. Not in words, but I felt him. I understood him. Marcus looked at Thunder the 3, awe mingling with gratitude and guilt. He knelt by the stallion, pressing his forehead to Thunder's. I thought you left me? Thunder 3 breathed slow and steady, forgiveness flowing through the air between them. In that moment, the bond was stronger than ever. But the danger wasn't over. Sarah wiped the dirt from her face and said, They're regrouping. There's a dozen men between us in the barn. Williams isn't going to let us go without a fight. Marcus nodded, his resolve hardening. Then we fight together. All of us. Thunder 3 snorted, eyes fierce. This was what it meant to carry the bloodline, to risk everything for the innocent, to choose justice over safety, to trust the partnership when it mattered most. As the 3 of them prepared to face the next onslaught, Marcus realized that every legacy is built on choices, not just the big, heroic ones, but the small, painful sacrifices made in moments of doubt and fear. The rescue had succeeded, but now Marcus, Sarah, and Thunder the Third stood together, outnumbered and surrounded, with Williams and his gunmen closing in from all sides. The valley was about to become a battleground, and the future of the legacy would be decided by what happened next. Dawn crept through the battered valley, painting the blood-streaked clouds in ribbons of pink and orange, a cruel reminder that life went on even after violence. In the safety of the creek's shadow, Marcus pressed his forehead to Thunder the Three's, letting relief and gratitude surge through him. Sarah, shaken but unbroken, crouched nearby, her hands gripping the stallion's mane as if it were an anchor in a sea of chaos. They sat there in silence, the sounds of Williams's men echoing in the distance, shouts and barking orders rolling across the fields. Marcus found his voice at last, ragged with guilt and emotion. "I doubted you. I thought you left me. Thunder, I—" Thunder 3 snorted softly, pressing his broad, damp forehead into Marcus's chest. The message was clear. All is forgiven. No more doubts. Only trust. Sarah wiped a streak of blood from her cheek, her gaze flicking between man and horse. "He saved my life, Marcus. He didn't have to. I felt it. This connection. It's real, isn't it?" Marcus nodded, his voice choked. "He's not just a horse. He's a partner. He's family." Thunder 3 let out a quiet nicker, ears forward, his body radiating a calm strength. He'd made mistakes of his own, leaving Marcus behind, risking the herd's safety for a human he barely knew. But now, in the face of real danger, he understood. Bonds were forged in sacrifice, tested by pain, made unbreakable in forgiveness. A distant shout shattered the fragile peace. Marcus tensed, shotgun clutched tight, but Thunder the Three was already in motion, urging them to stand. He led them through the underbrush, moving with the stealth of a shadow, every step calculated to avoid the searching eyes of Williams's men. They reached the edge of the barn, just as a group of gunmen circled around, rifles gleaming in the new light. Williams's voice boomed over the chaos, angry and desperate. "Find them! Bring me that damn horse and Bennett, dead or alive!" Sarah's hands trembled, but Marcus reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "Stay low. Trust Thunder." Thunder 3's ears flicked. He glanced at Marcus, then at Sarah, a silent command flashing between them. It was time to fight, not as prey, but as equals, as partners. The plan unfolded in seconds. Thunder the Three darted across the open ground, drawing fire. Bullets whipped past, but the stallion moved with impossible grace, zigzagging and spinning, a living shadow. Marcus, crouching behind a pile of hay bales, waited until two men moved closer, then sprang up shouting, "Over here!" The men whirled, firing wildly, but Marcus dove for cover, leading them into the narrow cattle chute where the ranch dogs waited, teeth bared. The first gunman stumbled, knocked flat by a snarling collie, his rifle tumbling away. Sarah slipped out behind a trough and grabbed the weapon, training it on the other man. "Drop it!" she shouted, and to everyone's surprise, the man obeyed, hands shaking. The alliance between the humans and their animal allies was chaos. But it was working. Meanwhile, Thunder 3 faced 3 men at once. He reared, hooves flashing, teeth bared in a challenge that sent one gunman fleeing. The other two hesitated, eyes wide. Thunder feinted left, then lunged right, knocking a rifle from the closest man's grip. The second raised his pistol, but Marcus appeared behind him, swinging a shovel with desperate force. The man collapsed, groaning. Now it was 3 against the world. Marcus, Sarah, and Thunder the Third, back to back in the chaos, every movement perfectly synchronized. Marcus found himself anticipating Thunder's feints, ducking when the stallion reared, rushing forward when Thunder pressed the attack. Sarah's aim was steady, her voice clear, the training of a ranch girl, and the fire of her ancestors shining through. For the first time, Marcus felt the bond as more than just trust. It was intuition, knowing what Thunder would do before he did it, reading the world through his partner's senses. He saw the battlefield not only as a man, but as a horse. The open spaces, the scent trails, the flicker of movement in the grass. Thunder the Three, in turn, adapted to Marcus's strategy, following his shouts, shifting his weight in anticipation of commands that were never spoken aloud. The fight became legend. A swirling storm of man, woman, and horse moving as one. Williams watched in disbelief as his well-armed thugs were scattered by teamwork and courage. Useless, he roared. Firing his revolver at Thunder 3, the bullet grazed Thunder's flank, but the stallion did not falter. He wheeled and charged, forcing Williams back. The sheriff stumbled, cursing, as Sarah tackled him, wrenching the gun from his hand. In the confusion, the remaining gunmen retreated, dragging their wounded behind them, fear overtaking greed. Marcus, breathing hard, stood over Williams, shotgun pointed at the ground. "It's over. Leave. And if you ever set foot here again, you won't get a warning." Williams, beaten and trembling, spat in the dirt, but he knew defeat when he saw it. He staggered to his feet and limped off, his men trailing after, their pride and arrogance trampled into the dust. For a moment, the valley was still. Thunder the Three's sides heaved, sweat darkening his coat, but his eyes were bright, his head held high. Sarah leaned against Marcus, relief flooding her face. Marcus knelt by Thunder, running his hands over the stallion's wound. "You did it. We did it." Thunder 3 nuzzled Marcus, then Sarah, forging a silent pact between all three, the pain of betrayal, the scars of doubt, all forgiven in victory. They were partners now, not just by fate, but by fire. The morning sun climbed higher, spilling gold across the battered earth. The herd drifted back, cautious but unharmed. The ranch dogs circled, tails wagging, as if celebrating their role in the victory. Even the wild horses lingered at the edge of the field, eyes shining with respect for their leader and his chosen humans. Sarah wiped tears from her cheeks, laughter bubbling up as the tension broke. "Remind me never to get on Thunder's bad side." Marcus grinned, exhaustion and pride mingling in his chest. "Me too. But we couldn't have done this without you." She shook her head. "No. None of us could have done it alone." Thunder 3 lifted his head, scanning the horizon. There was peace for now. But deep inside, he sensed a greater purpose calling. This fight was just the beginning. In his dreams, he saw visions, a line of horses and humans, 7 pairs, riding out together across a land in need of justice. But for this moment, the valley was safe, the legacy unbroken, the bond between souls stronger than ever. As Marcus, Sarah, and Thunder the Third savor their hard-won victory, the stallion is visited by a spiritual vision. Bass Reeves himself, revealing a destiny that will take them far beyond the valley, to a mission that could change America forever. Night returned to the valley, a velvet hush broken only by the gentle snort of horses and the crackle of dying embers in the fire pit. Victory brought a fragile peace, but sleep would not come easily for Marcus. He lay on his back, the old barn roof arching above him, listening to Sarah's steady breathing and the soft movements of Thunder 3 outside. The adrenaline had faded, replaced by an ache that went deeper than muscle, a longing for understanding, a sense that something bigger waited just beyond the edges of what he could see. Thunder 3 stood in the moonlit clearing, his wound clean but sore, his breath rising in plumes into the cool night air. The herd slept nearby, a gentle ripple of dark forms in the grass. Yet the stallion's heart raced with energy, a restlessness that would not let him rest. He felt something pulling him, a force older than pain or pride, humming in his bloodline like a song half remembered. He closed his eyes, head low, and let his spirit drift. The world faded, barn, horses, humans, dissolving into shadow and memory. And there, in that liminal place where body and soul met, Thunder 3 saw him, Bass Reeves. The legendary marshal stood in a field of starlight, tall and broad-shouldered, his face lined with the wisdom of 1,000 hard choices. His eyes shone with pride and sadness, his hand resting on the neck of the first Thunder, a horse of pure midnight black. The wind carried the scent of gunpowder and wild sage. "You have done well, Thunder," the vision whispered, voice as deep as the earth. "But your task is only beginning. There are 7 sacred sites across this land, Each one is a wellspring of justice, guarded by blood and spirit. When these places fall to darkness, injustice rises, and the world turns cold. Thunder 3's ears flicked. In his heart, he felt the weight of Bass's words. You and your partner are the first of 7, Bass continued. You must seek out the others, men and women, worthy of the bond, horses of the Thunder bloodline, scattered by time and trouble. Only when all 7 ride together will the balance be restored. Fail, and injustice will rule this country. Succeed, and you will become legends greater than those who came before. The vision faded, but the message burned in Thunder 3's mind. He awoke with a start, mane damp with dew, the call to action pounding in his chest. At dawn, Marcus rose, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and found Thunder the Third staring at him with a new, urgent energy. Marcus approached, laying a hand on the stallion's neck. What is it, boy? You look like you've seen a ghost. Thunder 3 snorted, then pressed his head into Marcus's chest, sharing not just comfort but images. Flashes of the vision, the sacred sights, the gathering of 7. Marcus staggered, the force of it leaving him breathless. He saw through Thunder's eyes, ancient places marked by stone and spirit, flashes of men and women from every walk of life, black, white, Latino, native, each riding with a Thunder descendant, each fighting their own battles for justice. He saw Bass Reeves, his own grandfather, the long, unbroken chain that led to this very moment. The stories weren't just legends, they were instructions. A map for saving the soul of America. For a moment, Marcus resisted. A spiritual mission? Me? He'd been a tech guy, a city kid, more comfortable with screens than visions. He looked at Sarah, still asleep, and wondered what she'd think. But Thunder 3 pressed harder, sharing more, the pain of injustice, the hope of legacy, the strength in unity. Slowly, Marcus let himself believe. He remembered the trust that had grown between him and Thunder, the way their partnership had saved Sarah, saved the valley, saved themselves. Maybe faith was just another kind of courage. He nodded. All right, I'll follow. We'll find the others. Sarah woke to the sight of Marcus kneeling in the grass, hands pressed to Thunder's neck, tears streaming down his cheeks. She came to his side, her voice gentle. What's going on? Marcus explained haltingly at first, then with growing conviction. He spoke of the vision, the 7 sacred sites, the need to seek out others, to unite a team, to restore a balance that had been broken for too long. Sarah listened in silence, then smiled, her eyes shining with the fire of 1,000 ancestors. Then we go, all 3 of us. There's power in what you 2 share, and I want to be a part of it. The next days became a training ground for transformation. Marcus practiced riding bareback, learning the signals that passed from Thunder's body to his. He learned to read the world like a horse, to sense danger in the wind, to find water where there was only stone. Thunder the 3, in turn, learned to adapt to Marcus's strategic mind, planning routes, mapping safe houses, anticipating trouble before it arrived. Sarah joined their sessions, showing a talent for animal communication that surprised even herself. She helped train the younger horses in the herd, strengthening their defenses, teaching them to trust and work together. Under Thunder's watchful gaze, Marcus and Sarah became a team, not just partners of convenience, but kindred spirits called to a higher purpose. At night, the 3 sat around the fire, reading from Marcus's grandfather's journal, piecing together clues about the other sacred sites. A church in Mississippi, a mountain in Colorado, a red mesa in New Mexico. Each location whispered of loss and hope, of people longing for justice and ready to defend it. But as their plans solidified, the world outside the valley began to take notice. Stories of the black cowboy and his supernatural horse spread through nearby towns. Some called them heroes, others called them threats. One evening, as the last rays of sunlight faded, a government drone buzzed high above, camera lenses glinting. Marcus watched it circle, unease settling in his gut. They're watching us now, he said quietly. Thunder 3 pawed the earth, eyes fierce. It was a new kind of enemy. Not a sheriff or a gang, but the cold, relentless gaze of power. Sarah looked at Marcus, determination in her eyes. We stick to the plan. We find the others. We protect the sites, no matter who tries to stop us. Marcus nodded, drawing strength from his partners, human and horse. We're in this together. Until the very end. Thunder 3 lifted his head, the firelight catching in his eyes, and let out a call that echoed across the valley, a call not just for the herd, but for all who would join them in the fight for justice. Armed with new purpose and spiritual powers, Marcus, Thunder the Third, and Sarah set out to unite the seven, knowing powerful enemies are now aware of their mission and will do anything to stop them. 6 months had swept across the American landscape since Marcus, Thunder the Third, and Sarah set out from their Oklahoma Valley with a mission written in blood and spirit. Every mile they traveled became a stitch in the tapestry of a legend, a story whispered from town to town, from dusty barns to church steps, from rodeo arenas to windswept crossroads. The black cowboy and his supernatural stallion. It was a tale too wild to be true, and yet, everywhere they went, justice followed. They started in the Mississippi Delta, seeking the first of the sacred sites, a small, weathered church that had once served as a safe haven for runaway slaves. The place crackled with a history thick as humidity, the wooden pews worn smooth by generations of hope and suffering. There, Marcus and Thunder the Third found their first pair, a young preacher named Elijah, whose eyes burned with the same fierce light as his mare, Jubilee. The moment Thunder the Third stepped onto the churchyard, Jubilee snorted and stamped as if greeting a long-lost cousin. Elijah approached with caution, but when his hand touched Marcus's, a jolt of recognition passed between the men and between the horses. They rode together that night, their shadows flickering against the stained glass windows, forging a bond that would become the core of the Guardian Network. From Mississippi, the team journeyed west. They crossed the red hills of Texas, the mountains of Colorado, and the sun-baked mesas of New Mexico. At each sacred site, they found another partnership, Marisol and her chestnut gelding, Viento, in a border town, Big Tom, a Lakota veteran, and his blue roan, Smoke, atop a sacred bluff, Jasmine and her wild-eyed pinto, Star, on the edge of a forgotten gold mine. Each new member brought their own strengths, stories, and scars. Each partnership added a new layer of wisdom and a new measure of power to the growing network. Thunder 3 was at the center of it all. His presence commanded respect, not just among horses, but among the people who felt the old stories come alive in his gaze. He became the alpha of a super herd that stretched across 4 states, teaching the younger horses about duty, justice, and sacrifice. Foals who'd never known discipline learned to listen. Grizzled Mustangs with battered hides followed his silent lead. He coordinated patrols, sent out warnings, and sometimes vanished for days, returning with intelligence about threats to the sacred sites. If Marcus was the mind of the network, Thunder the Three was its living heart. Marcus changed, too. The city boy, who once fixed computers, now rode like a Comanche, moving as one with Thunder 3. He learned to speak to animals, to listen to the land, to read the smallest clues in the brush or the sky. In every town they passed, people stopped to stare, not just because of Thunder's size and beauty, but because Marcus himself seemed transformed. His skin had deepened with sun, his hands calloused from work, his eyes sharper, older, bearing the weight of something holy. Sarah found her calling within the network. She became the bridge between new members, mediating disputes, teaching city slickers how to hold a rope, helping heal both horses and humans wounded in their work. Her sense for danger proved uncanny. Once, outside Lubbock, she woke the camp in the dead of night, moments before a wildfire swept down the canyon. Thanks to her, the team escaped unharmed and helped a nearby town evacuate in time. Their reputation grew. Newspapers began to pick up the stories. The Black Cowboys Vigilante Network stops corrupt sheriff in Amarillo. Mysterious horseback heroes save family ranch from arsonists. TV stations sent out news vans, hoping for a glimpse of Thunder 3. Marcus was careful, granting interviews only on his terms, always protecting the secret of the 7 sites. Cameras rolled as he and Thunder the 3 trained new pairs, Elijah and Jubilee learning how to outflank a gang of oilfield roughnecks, Marisol teaching Viento to sniff out explosives, Jasmine and Star perfecting stealth maneuvers on rocky ground. One afternoon, a young journalist named Ava visited the Oklahoma ranch. She was bright, persistent, and genuinely curious, her questions sharp but respectful. She filmed Thunder the 3 moving through the herd, issuing commands with a flick of his ear or a low nicker. In her segment, she described him as the silent general of a justice cavalry. The footage went viral. People from across the country and even overseas wrote letters, sent money, and begged to join the cause. To Marcus's surprise, his grandfather's old journal became a bestseller when he published it under the title Thunder Bloodline, Stories of Justice and Spirit. The book drew international attention. Native elders from the 4 corners reached out, offering wisdom about the old ways and the hidden sites. A civil rights lawyer in Atlanta called, offering pro bono support. The legend was growing beyond their control. And for the first time, Marcus understood why the secret had been so fiercely protected. With fame came danger. Not everyone wanted justice. Corrupt landowners and local politicians whispered that the Guardian Network was a vigilante group, a threat to the old order. Rumors of supernatural powers, horses that could understand speech, riders who saw through walls, ancient treasures buried in sacred ground, made some people nervous and others hungry. Then came the federal government. It started as a trickle, men in suits, black SUVs parked on dirt roads, questions asked in town. Agents from the Bureau of Land Management, the FBI, even the Department of Homeland Security began to probe. They claimed the horses were genetically unique, a national treasure that should be studied, controlled. Marcus received a letter. The Guardian Network must register all partnerships with the government. Failure to comply will result in legal action. The team gathered at the Oklahoma ranch to discuss their next move. The tension was thick as a summer storm. "If they separate us, it's over," said Elijah, fist clenched. "They want to break the bond," Marisol added. Sarah's eyes flashed. "Let them try. They have no idea what they're dealing with." Thunder 3 pawed the earth, the herd shifting behind him. He could sense the threat, not from outlaws or greedy sheriffs this time, but from men who used laws and laboratories instead of guns. For the first time, he wondered if freedom might mean running wild, leaving Marcus and the others behind. But Marcus put a hand on his neck, voice quiet but unyielding. "We face this together. I'm not leaving you, Thunder. Not now. Not ever." They stood side by side, horse and human, as federal agents assembled on the horizon, preparing for a raid that would test everything the network had built. As government forces prepare to strike, Thunder the 3 faces his ultimate test: flee to freedom or stand by Marcus and risk captivity. The fate of the Guardian Network and the legacy itself hangs in the balance. The Oklahoma dawn was unusually still. Not a single coyote called, not a breeze stirred the golden grass. On the edge of the Bennett ranch, black SUVs idled in neat rows, their windshields reflecting the rising sun like a line of shields. The men inside wore earpieces, Kevlar vests, and carried files stamped with the insignias of agencies Marcus had only ever seen in movies: FBI, Homeland Security, even scientists from the Department of Agriculture. Out on the dirt road, the government had come, not with ropes and guns, but with warrants and tranquilizer darts, ready to tow Thunder. But as Thunder 3 glanced back, he saw Marcus standing alone at the porch, shotgun in hand, jaw set, fear and love mixing in his dark eyes. Sarah was inside, hurriedly gathering the precious journals, photographs, the map to the sacred sites. The rest of the network was scattered across the states, unreachable by phone, separated by a net of government checkpoints. This, Thunder 3 knew, was what destiny truly looked like. Not a vision, not a battle, but a crossroads. To escape would mean saving himself, maybe even saving the Thunder bloodline, but it would also mean abandoning Marcus and everything they had fought for. From the cover of the barn, Thunder 3 watched as a line of agents moved forward, slow and careful, hands hovering over their weapons but not yet drawn. The lead agent, a woman in a dark suit with steel gray hair, raised a megaphone. "This is the United States government. We are here for Thunder 3. Step away from the animal. No one will be harmed if you comply." Marcus stiffened. He shouted back, voice cracking with emotion. "He's not a specimen. He's my partner. You have no right—" The agent sighed, her voice echoing across the fields. "We're authorized to use force if necessary. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Thunder 3's heart pounded. He felt the herd looking to him, waiting for a signal. His spirit ached for the wild, for the chance to turn, to run, to never look back. He remembered the stories Bass Reeves had told through his dreams. Freedom without purpose is just emptiness. Legacy is found in the bonds you choose. From his place at the barn, Marcus saw the conflict in Thunder's eyes. He stepped forward, tears streaking his cheeks, hands raised. "Go if you have to, Thunder. Don't let them cage you. I'd rather lose you to the wild than see you locked up." Sarah pressed a hand to Marcus's back, her own eyes red. "We can hide the others. You don't have to do this." But Marcus shook his head. "No. I'm done hiding. If they want to take him, they'll have to take me too." Thunder 3 let out a deep, shuddering breath. He took a step toward the woods, then stopped. His mind filled with images, the battles fought, the people saved, the promises made to those who could not protect themselves. Freedom was sweet, but it was meaningless without his partner. Without Marcus, there was no mission, no legacy. He turned back, walked to Marcus's side, and pressed his muzzle into the man's chest. Marcus wrapped his arms around Thunder's massive neck, sobbing, "I'm here. I'll never leave you." In that moment, the bond between them was unbreakable. Marcus turned to the agents, his voice raw and defiant. "If you want him, you'll have to take both of us." The lead agent hesitated, but then gestured, and the line advanced. Tranquilizer guns were raised. Sarah ran to join them, clutching Thunder's mane, refusing to let go. They braced together, a human shield. Suddenly, the sound of hoofbeats thundered across the fields. From the north, Elijah and Jubilee galloped into view, Jubilee whinnying loud enough to wake the sky. From the south, Marisol and Viento arrived, followed by Big Tom and Smoke, Jasmine and Star. All 7 Thunder partnerships, united at last, converged on the ranch in a blaze of power and loyalty. Marcus's heart surged. He shouted above the din, "We stand together." Thunder the 3 reared, his mane streaming, eyes blazing. The other horses echoed him, pounding the earth in a chorus that sent shivers up the agents' spines. Elijah raised a hand, voice ringing, "These horses are our families, our sacred trust. You can't break what's written in blood." The agents fired their darts, but the horses moved as one, dodging, shielding their riders. A dart grazed Thunder the 3's flank, but he pressed on, adrenaline drowning out pain. Marcus leapt onto Thunder's back, Sarah behind him, and together they charged, not to run, but to push the line. What happened next would be written about for decades. The 7 pairs formed a wedge, horses and riders acting in perfect unison, every command unspoken, every move anticipated. Thunder 3 led the charge, his spirit infusing the herd with courage beyond mortal fear. Federal agents scattered, panic breaking their careful lines. Some tried to hold their ground, but none could stand against the fury of the united partnerships. Within minutes, the compound was in chaos. Several tranquilizer guns were crushed under hooves. Marcus, Sarah, Elijah, and the others rounded up the leaders, forcing them to the porch, demanding to see their warrants. The lead agent, face pale and hands trembling, finally shouted, "Enough, stand down." Thunder the 3, breathing hard, stood at Marcus's side. The battle was won, not with violence, but with unity. News helicopters circled overhead, filming the scene for a country eager for spectacle. Within hours, the governor's office announced an emergency hearing. Public outcries soared as footage of the black cowboy cavalry swept across the airwaves. By evening, a judge issued an order. All partnerships between humans and Thunderline horses were to be protected by law. No horse was to be seized, studied, or separated from its chosen partner. The government was forced to stand down, acknowledging the right to partnership as sacred and untouchable. In the barn, as the sun set behind them, Marcus tended Thunder Third's wound, hands gentle, voice soft. You chose us. You chose me. When you could have chosen freedom. I'll never forget that. Thunder 3 nuzzled Marcus, eyes warm, content. Around them, the other pairs celebrated, their horses prancing and nipping, their riders laughing, crying, hugging each other in the orange light. But as the moon rose over the ranch, Thunder 3 lifted his head. In the distance, he sensed a new threat stirring. The legend was safe for now, but destiny was never finished. Victory had come, but the horizon shimmered with new challenges. And Thunder 3 knew their greatest adventure was still ahead. A year passed, beneath a sky as wide and restless as the dreams that brought Marcus and Thunder Third together. Life on the Oklahoma ranch changed, but the heart of it, partnership, courage, justice, beat stronger than ever. The land itself seemed to breathe easier, its wounds healing with every sunrise that spilled gold across the open fields. The battle was over, but the legacy was just beginning to blossom. Marcus stood at the edge of the property one morning, coffee in hand, watching as Thunder 3 led a procession of foals along the creek, teaching them to leap the rocks, to read the wind, to trust the earth beneath their hooves. The stallion's body bore faint scars from the government raid, but his eyes were clear, his spirit undiminished. He was more than a horse now. He was a legend, the first officially recognized police partner horse in U.S. history, a symbol of a new era. The ranch bustled with new life and purpose. Sarah had become the chief coordinator for the Guardian Network, balancing spreadsheets in the kitchen one moment and wrangling wild yearlings the next. Elijah and Jubilee had started a nonprofit to protect sacred sites, traveling the country to educate, inspire, and recruit. Marisol, Big Tom, Jasmine, and the other partners maintained patrols, sharing knowledge and skills, each guarding their own sacred site, but always ready to answer a call for help. At the heart of it all, Marcus had been named director of the National Justice Heritage Program, his voice sought by senators, news crews, and school children from Boston to Sacramento. Together, the 7 partnerships had solved 47 major injustices in a single year, saving native land from illegal drilling in New Mexico, reuniting families torn apart by corrupt landlords in Louisiana, busting a ring of horse thieves along the Wyoming border, and breaking up a corporate water heist in the Texas Panhandle. The 7 Guardian sites were now federally protected, recognized as places where justice and heritage would be preserved for all time. Thunder the 3 took pride in his role as both leader and teacher. His sons and daughters, born of mares from all across the region, showed uncanny intelligence from birth. The foals learned quickly to heed human words, to sense fear and courage, to rally to the whistle of a partner. It was clear that the Thunder bloodline would endure, each new generation a blend of wild power and gentle wisdom. On the anniversary of the Great Battle, the entire Guardian Network gathered at the Oklahoma ranch for a ceremony. Horses and humans stood side by side, eyes shining, hearts pounding with pride. News crews rolled their cameras as Marcus delivered a speech about legacy, justice, and the power of unity. "We are more than a legend," he said, voice steady. "We are a living promise. That partnership can heal what violence and greed tried to destroy." As dusk settled, a hush fell over the gathering. Thunder 3 stood at Marcus's side, his black coat glowing in the last light, mane tangled from the day's play with the foals. Suddenly, a breeze stirred the air, a whisper at first, then stronger, swirling dust and leaves into a spiral at the center of the pasture. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. A vision shimmered at the edge of the dusk. Bass Reeves himself appeared, astride the original Thunder. The legendary marshal's eyes sparkled with pride and a quiet, eternal approval. "You've done well," his voice seemed to echo, both in Marcus's heart and Thunder 3's mind. "You've built something that will outlive us all. The bond you've forged, man and horse, soul and soul, will never be broken. Thunder 3 lowered his head in reverence, a deep sense of fulfillment swelling in his chest. Marcus swallowed hard, tears streaking his face, feeling his grandfather's hand on his shoulder, even if only in spirit. Bass raised his hand, a final blessing for the legacy he'd begun, and the vision faded into starlight. But the promise remained. An eternal bond, a connection that would never die. Life, of course, kept moving forward. Months later, Marcus and Sarah stood beneath the cottonwoods behind the house, surrounded by friends, family, and horses. She wore a simple white dress, flowers in her hair, the wind in her laughter. Thunder 3 stood beside Marcus. Best horse for the wedding, regal and proud, his presence as much a blessing as any preacher's words. The vows were simple: to love, to protect, to face whatever came together, human and horse, husband and wife, partners as in every sense. Later, as the last guests drifted away and the sun slipped behind the hills, Marcus walked Thunder 3 down to the creek. "You could have been wild," he murmured, stroking the stallion's neck. "You could have led your own herd, been free of all this, but you stayed. You chose us." Thunder 3 nuzzled him, the gesture full of warmth and humor, as if to say, "Saw so on in their Thunder 3, Marcus." As